Hey everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining me here. So I think a couple weeks ago I did a live stream. The thumbnail is called Let's Make Music, and I think I called it How to Actually Use Music Theory to Make Music. And y'all seem to like that, so I'm doing another one today, and I'm focusing on minor keys. And before I dive in, I just want to say that one of the weirdest things about learning to write music is the learning part. Because a lot of people think that if you just practice guitar enough and if you just learn enough songs and get, some good enough technique, then suddenly at a certain point you should just be able to write music or make music or play a solo. And that is not true. It takes practice. And for some people, the idea of practicing writing music is like just a novel concept because you've only ever heard finished songs. But today, I'm going to show you how to practice writing music, and it doesn't involve writing finished songs. It just involves goofing around, putting some pieces together and seeing what you like, and if you like it, keep working on it. If you don't like it, ditch it. I have not planned what key I'm going to play in today. I haven't planned what I'm going to write other than we're going to do stuff in a minor key. So maybe I'm not going to write something I like today. I'll scrap it and start over. That's a normal part of the process. And that's part of the reason I'm doing it live, is to show you that even someone who writes music all the time doesn't always write stuff they like. But who knows? Maybe I'll write something I really like and then we'll hang out. So what I'd like to do for starters is let's make sure the camera guitar is working here. And I'm gonna scoot over here and not knock my water bottle over. I got my iPad here, and let's just make sure this is working. So, good. We got a C. It looks like some drum sounds are in there, that's fun. So, a C major scale. Let's just start there. We got C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And in my previous live stream, we talked about whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half is the major scale formula. We talked about how if you take every other note of the scale, you get the one chord, the first chord in the key. If you take every other note starting on D, you get the second chord in the key. Do the same thing on the third note, and you get the 3 chord, the 4 chord, 5 chord, 6 chord, 7 chord, and we're back to the 1 chord. If you're not familiar with this kind of stuff, I think you'll still have fun today, but I definitely recommend checking out my previous stream, Let's Make Music. And then I also did another stream called, I think it was called Chords in a Key. That'll help you really understand this concept. But one of the coolest things about major keys is that every major key has a relative minor. And what that means is if we ditch this root note here and instead put A there. There we go. Now, we've got an A minor scale. And one of the cool things about the chords in a key is that if you know your relative majors and relative minors, the chords in a minor key are actually the same as the chords in a major key, just in a different order. Well, actually in the same order, just starting from a different place. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we've got C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B. And of course, don't forget, we're not just gonna be showing you how to do it. We're gonna have some fun and actually make music in a minute here, but it's important to show where we got this stuff. So what I have here is these are the chords in the key of C major. And if we use Roman numerals, you can see that we label the chords with these Roman numerals. So a 1, 4, 5 chord progression in the key of C major is going to be C, F, G, right? Going back to 4. But if we do the same kind of chord progression, a 1, 4, 5 in the key of A minor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's going to be different chords in the key of A minor, we're going to actually have A minor is our 1 chord, and we're going to have D minor as the 4 chord and E minor as the 5 chord. We can actually use any of this set of chords that we want, and some of them have some of them are a little more fun than others. I kind of like thinking, I don't know, let's tinker for a minute. This is part of the fun. And if you have a guitar with you right now, feel free to just select a set of chords from this set, this A minor set here. And I'm going to ditch this for now. I'm going to start with A minor. It usually helps to make it feel like it's in the key of A minor if you start with A minor, but you certainly don't have to. This is all about just having fun today. So let's try this chord progression. This sounds interesting. A minor, F, E minor, D minor. And I'm gonna that's kind of cool. That's kind of a nice little chord progression. Let's try another one. And then what I'd like to do is, anytime you have a question, feel free to fire it off in the chat. If you want to at Scott Paul Johnson, it'll be easier for me to see. And then here and there, I'll just take a pause and answer questions anytime you have some questions. But, for now, let's get back into this. So all we're doing is we're just trying to take a set of chords here and, string them together in a way that sounds fun or interesting or whatever you like. There isn't really a right way to do it. The only way there could be a right way to do it is if you want it to sound a certain way and it's not sounding that way. That's the only way you'd be doing it wrong, for now. But yeah, if we let's try A minor, C, A minor, F. That sounds like an interesting progression. Let's see how that sounds. So A minor, C, A minor. That's kind of interesting. So, one thing I love about guitar is the cowboy chords are awesome. And if you were going to write a song where you make up a melody and sing it, this might be the easiest way to play, Na 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 na. I don't know. I just made that up. But if you want to just play guitar, you could also sort of map out where these chords are all over the fingerboard. For example, hey, my camera guitar is not working now. Oh yeah, it is. There we go. So if we mapped out A, C, and E, these are the notes in an A minor chord. So if instead of playing, strumming an A minor down here, we could do something like this. And then the notes in a C chord are C, E, and G. So we could go, that's the A minor, that's the C. That's kind of cool. And then we go back to A minor. And then the notes in an F chord. I'm actually cracking up because you're not supposed to be hearing drum sounds every time the notes appear on the screen here, but that's an F chord. So this is kind of a more interesting, fun, way to play these chords would be to go A minor, C, or what was I doing? I was doing this, A minor, C, A minor, F. Kind of cool, right? Webb's bags. This is an A minor scale. And these are the chords in an A minor scale. And if you needed just a real quick refresher on why these are the chords in A minor, it's because when we start on the root note and we play every other note till we get 3 notes, that gives us the first chord in the key. When we start on B and we play every other note, that gives us the second chord in the key, B diminished chord. And then when we start on C, we play every other note. That gives us a C chord. Start on D, That gives us a D minor chord starting on E. Every other note gives us an E minor. Starting on F, every other note gives us an F chord. And then G is the last one there. G, B, D. So if you want to build the chords in a key, whatever your scale is, you just play every other note till you get 3 notes, and do that for each note of the scale. That's how you get all the chords. It's easy in principle. It can take a while to figure out, which is why I actually want to show you a really cool thing on my website, and then I'll check out questions, because I see a few questions are coming up. But first, what I want to show you is, let's get that off of there. If you pop over to my website and you scroll down to the bottom, you click scratch paper. One of my patrons made this really cool tool, and any chord progression you want to figure out, you can just pick a color and go, I just played an A minor chord. And you can kind of reverse engineer the chords that you've written. If you don't know what notes are in a particular chord, you can plug them in here. So let's say you want to figure out what notes are in a C chord. Well, the notes in a C chord are C, E, and G. And then what I really like about this scratch paper is the frickin' all notes button, because you can now click a C, you can now click an A, you can click an E, and they'll show up all over the fingerboard. And actually right here, this is the A minor chord I was just playing. And if you want to go, how do I get a C chord all over the fingerboard? You click the all notes button, and it's just a super handy tool, a super handy way to just figure out chords in a key, whatever you want to do. The last chord we were messing with there was an F chord, and an F chord is F, A, and C. That's why when you play this, of course my scene switching button stopped working. When you play this bar chord, it's an F chord because you're only playing F, A, and C. I think it's pretty cool. So check this out, scottpauljohnson.com, and then you just scroll to the bottom and click scratch paper. And the all notes button, to me, is the coolest thing. So we got some questions here. I'm gonna head back to my desk over here, and we will get to your questions. So first question is from Brandon Drake. And then we'll make this a little more fancy. We'll do more of this chord progression stuff in some recording software. We'll make a beat for it, it'll be fun. But Brandon Drake says, Scott Paul Johnson, with minor key progressions, do they typically resolve differently than a major key would, or do they not resolve but just roll back to the beginning of the progression? That actually leads me to harmonic and melodic minor, which I want to talk about next. That'll be really fun, because there's ways that the major key gets to resolve back to 1 really nicely to the first chord, the 1 chord, that the minor key doesn't get to do quite as well. Let's see. Sean Strong says, Scott, does the key you're in correspond with the first caged shape on the neck? Sort of, but yes. If you look at this little chart over here, yeah, there is a C shape in there. But you always want to think about those things just happen to correspond. What am I trying to say? In a nutshell, yes. I was about to dive into something that's way too much for right now, but yeah. Let's see. Naughty says, Scott Paul Johnson, I've heard recently that if you start your progression in a different mode, then use the root for the chorus, it makes it pop off more or makes it bigger, something like that. That's interesting. I think I get what you're saying. That's something we might be able to experiment with later. I might forget, but let's try it. And then Kite says, sorry if this is off topic, but what exercises would be useful for a beginner? That is off topic, but in general, I would say just about any simple exercise would be beneficial for just getting used to your brain connecting to your fingers. Awesome. Yeah, Colin says, beginner here. How long does it take to even comprehend this stuff? yeah, this can be some scary stuff. And I would say get to know some songs first, get comfortable with some scales, and then the best way to start understanding this stuff is to use it to actually make some music. Similar to how if you want to learn a language, you don't want to study about Spanish. You want to actually learn Spanish words and start trying to communicate, string together Spanish sentences, even poorly. Learning how to communicate is the best way to learn a language. Learning how to make music is the best way to understand music theory. So let's talk about some cool stuff here. And I have also some lessons on my online school that really help solidify a lot of this stuff. Do I want to do it here? No, I think I'm going to go full on camera guitar stuff. So check this out. One cool thing about the major key, I'm going in here, is that we've got, even though we're just hanging out in C major and A minor for now, that's the relative major, relative minor. They use all the same chords, but in the key of C, we're trying to feel like C is home in the major key and A minor is home in a minor key. So there's something kind of cool that is special about the 5 chord in a major key. That is what we call the chord based on the 5th note of the scale, but you don't call it the 5th chord, we call it the 5 chord. And that is, this kind of chord sounds really cool. This kind of chord traditionally feels like it wants to go back to C. And there's something about that, traditionally, historically. Yeah, it just feels nice when you play a G7 chord and you go back to C. When we go up to the key of A minor here and we go to the 5 chord and we play this E minor and we go back to A minor, there is a A minor, E minor, E minor. Yeah. A minor, E minor. C being 1, we just call it the 1 chord. You could call it the chord based on the root, but that's the 1 chord. Some people call it the tonic, but I just call it the 1 chord. But you can, when you listen back and forth from A minor to E minor, it doesn't really feel like any one of these chords is home. When you compare it to G7 and C. Like, chat, tell me which one feels like home. Does C feel like home or does G feel like home? And what's so special and weird about this G chord is when we make this little scale circle, which I was going to do it on my iPad, but of course we have technology for this. We don't have to do it on the iPad. When I play every other note of a C scale starting on G, that's how we get a G chord. Well, it turns out the way you get all your 7th chords in a key is you keep going with this little every other madness. So for example, if I do that on the 1 chord, C, E, G, I get this beautiful chord called a major 7 chord. The reason it's called a major 7 chord is root, 3rd, 5th, and 7 of a major scale. Or maybe it's because the distance between this C and this B is called a major 7th, but beautiful chord, right? If we go to the 4 chord, we get the same kind of chord. Beautiful chord, but it doesn't really feel like it's pulling you anywhere, right? Right? But when we get to this 5 chord, and we do this every other note, it has that weird pull to it that feels like it wants to go back to C. Kind of wild, right? So it turns out some people, I like to just pretend that there were, in history there used to be major key people and minor key people. And the way I like to think of it, this definitely didn't happen, I don't think, but the way I like to picture it is that the minor key people got really jealous of this chord and they went, man, your relationship from 5 to 1 is awesome. We want that in our minor key and we're just gonna steal it. And we're now going to have that same kind of chord. And in a nutshell, you get this, which, let me put my root note back in the right place. There we go. It gives us this weird extra note, G sharp. And now we have, that is an E7 to an A minor. And now if you play an A minor chord progression, like I'm playing A minor C, and I'm gonna play E7. And there's something about that E7 that almost like points you back to A minor. And it's kind of cool, and it's called harmonic minor. Technically, it's the scale. And there's some other cool things that happen because of that weird note. But the easiest thing is to just think of, now you get this cool extra chord as a 5 chord. So, now that we've done some kind of lesson stuff, let's make a beat. Let's get some recording software going. Let's have some fun with this and talk about how to actually like make some stuff. So, I am gonna have a sip of water because I'm overheating a little bit. And now I'm gonna pop over to Logic Pro. Oh yeah, my buttons aren't working. By the way, chat, if, yeah, MAW, now that minor chord sounds like the 1 chord, the root chord, exactly, you got it. That's what's so cool about having that E7 in there. So, I'm gonna open my recording software and I'm gonna find, I might actually switch my headphones so that I can hear better, so that we have better sound going on. But let's make a beat here. And what do I want? Ooh. So what I'm doing is I'm using my my MIDI controller here. Where is that? Oh, of course, my buttons. My MIDI controller. These things are so cool because all they do is control any instrument in your computer. So right now it's hooked up to this drum set, and later I'm gonna hook it up to, I don't know, a piano, or I really prefer electric piano, but I'll also play some guitar too, don't worry. But let's come up with a nice little beat. Naughty says they are quite inexpensive as well. Yes, these things are, for how much use you can get out of them, they're incredibly cheap. This one I think is 50 bucks. So I like this drum kit. I'm gonna use it to make a beat. What tempo do we want? 87, sure. And I'm just gonna record something. We'll keep it simple for now. I'm gonna hit the button to quantize it because I'm not trying to be a perfectionist. I'm just trying to write some music. And then I think I'll write another beat over here just so we have 2 beats to play with. Yeah, something with these little... I'm going too fast. There we go. And I'm not trying to be a perfectionist, but I don't want to go too, you know, I don't want to be too sloppy. So now I got these 2 beats back to back. And what I want to do is I want to write a beat for each one. Yeah, exactly. So here's beat 1, and then here's beat 2. Whoa, nice. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna be going back to my iPad here, and let's pick a key. Now that we know, I mean, we could do one. Let's just stick with A minor, I guess, for now. But maybe later we'll do a trickier key. Yeah, why not? So let's see. For beat 1 here, I gotta get my guitar plugged in and figure out, what do I want to play? What's gonna sound the best here? And the best is actually very arbitrary. It's not about what's the best, it's about what do I like? What sounds good to me? So I can do this. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit and I'll show you my iPad and my guitar. And I am gonna make sure you can hear my guitar in my software here. So this is my just raw, unaffected sound. And someone earlier was asking about good amp simulators, and to be honest, I'm happy with whatever Logic Pro offers, generally speaking here. So let's see. Yeah. So I'm gonna noodle around for a minute with this set of chords. Right here. I'm gonna play A minor, B diminished, C, D minor, E minor, F major, G major. Those are the chords I'm gonna play. Yeah. So let's do it. Let's see what happens here. And I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, and it's probably gonna be sloppy. This is part of it. Oh, this is a Music Master. Single pickup from the 70s. This was the cheapest student model Fender they had at the time. I love it so much. So I'm gonna noodle around. Okay, so we just got A minor, F, and we got C, and we got G. That's pretty classic. I want to do something different. That's kind of nice. That's A minor, C, and then F, and D minor. That's cool. So what I just did was, I'll show you on the camera guitar real quick since we already have it all set up. I didn't do anything with this G sharp. I just left the key normal, and I did A minor, C, F, and D minor, but I played it up here in these really tight little voicings. So here's my A minor, A, C, E, and then I did G, C, E, or C, E, G, because C is the root note. It's a C major chord. And then I did F major, which is F, A, C. And then I did a D minor, which is D, F, or D, F, A. And to me, this is what's so cool about writing music is you can look at on paper and see, yeah, these are just a set of chords, but then you can do an infinite number of voicings that make those chords sound so much more interesting, so different, so cool. Maybe you don't like these voicings, but I've loved doing, very few strings. But this does sound a little more like a verse, right? It's a little more chill. I'm gonna turn the guitar down a little bit. So now if we were gonna write a chord progression for the other section, we don't have to call it a chorus, it can just be the other section. I love writing 2 sections at a time. Let's see. So here's what we got. It feels a little more chill, so it's probably not right for a chorus, but we're not writing a song right now, right? We're just messing with some music. So I just want to noodle with this next section here and see what happens. Luis, I see that you have a question. I will get to it shortly here, and anyone else who has a question, next time I sort of take a break from writing, I'll answer whatever questions you have if I can. So what do I want to do? I kind of like the idea of dropping A minor, E minor, A minor. So, okay, what I just did that I think is so weird and cool about harmonic minor is that this chord, oh, my buttons they stop working sometimes when I open my recording software. I just did A minor, E minor, and then I did A minor, E7. And honestly, that sounds super cool. So I think I wanna record that. And this is what I love about harmonic minor, is that you don't have to play this E7 chord every time. You can play an E minor chord, or maybe I could try playing a G chord instead, because a G chord is G, B, D, and this E7 chord has a G sharp, which makes these 2 chords feel very different from each other. Here's what I'm talking about. Here's A minor to G, and then here's A minor to E. That's kind of hip. I think I'm gonna try coming up with something like that in this little section here. So let's see. Here we go. What am I doing? I like the order of those chords, but I don't like the rhythm. Maybe I want to do something a little different here. Let's see. I'm gonna go. It's a little simple, but we don't need to be too fancy. Let's hear how this section sounds going into the next section. So I'll start it halfway through here. That's kind of cool. And then here it goes back into that other section. It's kind of fun. I think what I'd rather do is, honestly, and this is what happens sometimes when you're writing, I actually like this first section so much that what I'd rather do is, instead of bring it down with this other section, I'll save that. I'll show you what I'm doing on my screen here. I'll save this little bit that I recorded here, but I'm gonna scoot it over. And what I'm gonna do instead is take this beat, and I'm gonna actually try to make this beat feel a little bigger. And I'm gonna do that by, I'm actually gonna turn this down, and I'm gonna copy all these little hi-hats, and I'm gonna turn these ones so they're a little more intense. And now we've got, let's see. I thought I was so clever, but I was not paying attention. Here we go. I want to do some 16th notes, so I'm going to do something like this. And I might do a little 16th note kick beat in here. How about this? By the way, is just what it looks like to edit some drum software. Of course, I probably would want a real drummer if I was gonna do a professional recording, but man, writing music at home, this makes it so fun. Right? And then just so I don't have to keep copying and pasting, I'm gonna repeat what I just did. Isn't that kind of cool? So now I've got this section. So then what I want to do is this like, I want to do like a pause where you're like, I thought a chord was going to happen, and then it does it later like this. Let's see if I can do this. Let's see if this works. Let's see. Maybe it won't be as cool as I'm imagining, but let's see how it sounds. Let's see. See how that sounds going from this section back into the other one. That's kind of cool. Nice. Okay, so that's some guitar. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some bass, because I can't resist. Because anytime I like something I'm working on, I gotta throw down on some bass line stuff. So, I'm having fun. And that's the thing you wanna look for. You wanna have fun. And all I did was I started with an A minor scale, figured out the frickin' chords, and then here we are. And I'm gonna do some stuff to make sure my bass comes through nice and clear. Believe it or not, I'm gonna roll off a little bit of bass on the bass, which sounds crazy. Then I'm gonna do some quick little ninja compression work. Yeah. And I'm gonna set my threshold somewhere. Hopefully you can hear that pretty well. I also gotta do some other quick ninja work here. Let me see. That's set about nice. I'm gonna do some stuff so that it sounds really good for all of y'all. Okay, give me a sec here. This is some rapid fire stuff that I could explain, but I'm doing this purely so it sounds good on YouTube here. There we go, and I'm gonna blend. I might actually pan this guitar to one side a little bit. That's kind of nice. Yeah. Ooh, that's a little hot. Let's do a little sound check here and see how we sound. Bass is one of my favorite things. I'm a guitar player, but man, bass is so fun. Let's see. I forgot the chords though. It's F. This is gonna be fun. I'm gonna do the first section first because I can hear a cool bass line to put in there. But yeah, gotta remember the chords. It goes A minor to C to F to D minor. That's that first section. Never forget the chords. You always gotta know the chords. 2, 3, 4. So this is what happens. This is what always happens. I get a little fancy and then I get a little lost and then I gotta, I just get too fancy and I gotta reel it in a little bit. But this is what's so fun for me. I love it. I love playing bass so much. Nope. Yeah. That'll do. That's kind of fun. I love playing bass. So that's a nice little bass line. So someone asked for some bass pointers. Someone else asked a good question about perfectionism. Love it. I'm gonna try to throw down something on this next section, and then I would love to talk about all those things. Let's see. So I'm gonna go. That's not it. I don't know, something like that. I don't like that next section quite as much, but it's still fun. I want to hear them back to back real quick, and then I will answer any questions you throw at me as best I can. So here's our two sections. Let's see. Here we go. That's kind of fun. Cool. So we've got writing session number 1, which is just talking about mixing some regular old A minor with a little bit of harmonic minor sprinkled in there. Kind of fun. Now I'm here to ask any answer any questions you got. Did I miss one? I didn't miss any up here. Okay, so I'm coming down here to MAW says, you may as well give us some bass pointers while you're at it. I will in a sec, but lead by example 108 says, Scott, what would be your advice on being too scared or worried to record something due to being a perfectionist / not being able to have fun with it? So, Brandon Drake says, perfect is the enemy of done. Totally. But also, you know, this is really close to my heart because I also struggle with being a perfectionist. And, you know, sometimes I will say it's taken a lot of practice for me to be able to do this in front of people. It's kind of freaky, but I do it a lot over at my online school, patreon.com/ScottPaulJohnson. Makes it easier. But to be serious though, it really just takes, it takes practice, and just admitting to yourself that writing music takes practice. And it's not something, let me ask you a question. Who's the best person in the world? That question doesn't really make sense, does it? Like, what do you mean by best? What do you mean by most perfect? Like that is an unanswerable question, because the quality of being perfect or the quality of being best is kind of meaningless. And when it comes to writing music, everyone has personal taste. And when you start practicing writing stuff, if your goal is to show it to people, you're going to be scared all the time. But if you think of it more like journaling, where you're just like, here's a chord progression, that I'm just going to try it. And you just practice experimenting with things and putting them together. And you never think, this is the best thing I'm ever going to create. You just think, this is a thing I'm going to create. And a lot of musicians I know, they keep a lot of their work at arm's length until they've worked on it for many, many hours. And then they're like, okay, I'm really starting to like this. And a lot of learning to write music is just about practicing the mechanics of stringing some chords together, stringing some notes together, practicing what you like about melody making. And, in the same sense that you need to practice individual techniques on guitar, like you can't just sit down and play a song. You got to get the hang of, okay, I'm just fretting my first fret here. I'm going to try some of these finger exercises. And I just got to get used to putting my fingers where they need to go. That's the same kind of thing. You just got to get used to putting your fingers where they need to go. With songwriting, it's the same kind of thing. You got to just practice going, okay, what do I like? I like playing A minor to D minor. I like playing A minor to E minor, right? Oh, that sounds interesting to me. And what I love about the Roman numerals is you get to practice really thinking like, for some reason in a minor key, I really love a 1-6. There's something about that really does it for me. And you just start collecting little things that you like. And if you're a perfectionist, you're going to sit down and feel like I need to write a whole song. But I haven't written a song. I've just written some pieces of something, and it really helps to deconstruct the pieces. If you like using recording software, you can think, today I'm just going to sit down and write some drum beats. That's not very personal, right? Then you think, I'm just going to write a bass line to some really simple block chords, right? You could just sit down and go, okay, that's not a very personal thing, right? That's just some chords. And you could go, okay, I'm gonna practice writing melodic phrases to that. Break it into smaller pieces so you're not feeling like a failure for not writing a song, because you're obviously not writing a song. But really what it comes down to, lead by example, is just remember that it takes practice, and that the goal is not to make perfect music, but to learn how to express your feelings and your thoughts and your ideas through music. That's the idea. Yeah, hopefully that gives you some stuff to think about. Lead by example. Yeah, it really just takes practice. And you just said you might sub to my Patreon. That is awesome, because I have every 2 weeks I have a writing challenge. It's called a community challenge, and sometimes it'll be just write something in A minor. Sometimes it'll be write something sad. Sometimes it'll be write something with a lot of slides. And the idea is this writing prompt gives you the freedom to not write a song, but just write a little something that that you can then submit, and you can listen to other people's takes on that same writing prompt. And what I like about that is it reminds you that, oh, I don't feel like I'm being very original when I submit this, but when I hear everyone else's idea, they came up with something totally different. than I did. And it's there to remind you that you just writing music at all is already an original thing because you came up with it, and it's pretty awesome. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah. So there's some stuff to think about. MAW, thanks for the $20. I appreciate that. Wow. Thank you. Awesome. Maybe I should write some more. Como Rebi, you're welcome. Thanks for being here. I appreciate that. And now I don't see any other questions, so I'm gonna write some more music. Let's do this. Let's pick a new key. We were doing A minor. Let's do, I don't know. Let's do the key of, see, with my camera guitar, I have a limited number of keys. So I could do the key of E minor, or I could do the key, let's do the key of B minor. Oh, didn't I do that last time? Let's do E minor then. Here we go. E minor. So we have E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. And we got whole, half, whole, half, whole, if we were gonna end up on E over here. This is an E minor scale, and all the chords in the key of E minor just come from the scale. It comes from going every other note. So that is an E minor chord. And I have lessons on my Patreon, and I think a few on YouTube showing how you know what chord is for every note of the scale. But for now, because we're just writing music, we're just gonna write them out. So here are the chords in the key of E minor. Since I just talked about harmonic minor, I'm gonna throw this one in here as well as an option. And then what I might do to make things a little more funky, a little more fun, is I could talk about melodic minor, but I think what would be more fun is to talk about the 7th chords we can use. And I think rather than do a lesson about how to get them, I kind of just want to play around with them. So this is going to be a C major 7, and this is going to be a D7. Major 7 chords are super cool, and they are basically, here, let me clear this off so we can have the key of E minor. We got, did I miss this? No, I got everything. So we got an E minor chord like we just talked about with this one here. And, oh yeah, all the chords fit there. But an E minor 7 chord is when we take E, G, B, then we throw in a D. So we got this nice, beautiful chord, F sharp, half diminished, killer chord, G major 7. That's when we throw a little F sharp into a G chord here. Beautiful chord. And then we've got A minor 7, B minor 7. We got a C major 7. And then we got a D7. And then we're back to E. So let's see. Yeah, I love all 7th chords. So here's what I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna just try to make a little groove here. We'll do the same kind of thing. Yeah, I'll save this. This felt kind of special to write something live on my YouTube channel. I'll save this old one. Notice I didn't finish this song. It's not a song, I'm just practicing writing music, and we're gonna do this some more. So let's see, what day is it? November 8th, okay. Now I'm gonna make a new one. So we're doing something in E minor, and I'm starting a new project here. That means we get to pick some new drum tones. Yeah, one note added to a chord can really be magical. So I love starting with a beat. It really helps me have something to respond to, react to. It's my favorite way to write. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pick a nice beat here, and then, yeah, and in the meantime, if anyone has any questions about anything. Oh, I really like this kick drum. Let's see. That's a kind of sick beat. I'm gonna turn it down so I can really hear the click. Maybe I need something fast though. I did a slow one before. What's this? Okay. I don't know. That's not usually my vibe, but let's try it. Okay. Let's see here. I liked the second half, so I'm gonna take the second half and then I'll just make that the whole thing. What do we have? Cool, and then I like to do a second section. If you're just learning how to write, just start with one little section. It reminds you that you don't have to write a whole song. We're just goofing around. So then that's my first section. Do we want to be crazy like that? That's kind of intense. My timing's a little sloppy. I was going too fast. I think this sounds intense by itself, but I think it'll be nice in context. So here's my first section. Okay, so we want to write a little bit more chill chord progression first, and then we want to ramp it up to a little more intense chord progression. Let's see. The key, by the way, if anyone wants to know, my little secret to, it's not a secret, it's just your basic drum beat. Always, if you start out with a kick on 1 and 3 and a snare on 2 and 4, I have my beats. Yeah, these are my correct beats, like this. Whoops, here we go. Wait a second, hang on a second. Oh, I see, I just have one measure selected. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a whole count of 4. So I can go actually like this, and now you can hear. So this is your basic starting point, right? This is your basic starting point. And if you wanted to add a hi-hat on every, you could add hi-hats on every beat like this. Or you could add hi-hats on 8th notes like this. And now you have your most basic beat. And here's my little secret. It's pretty straightforward to if you just keep your snares on 2 and 4 and don't really mess with them too much, you can mess with your kick a bit more. And the way I like to think about it is if I group my kicks close together, for example, if I put 2 kicks on a here and here, then I got, right? But I could also put a kick close by this other guy over here. And that makes a nice beat. I can also put a kick over here like this. And to me, this is the way to make some endless variations. I could put another kick right here and I got, right? And this is, to me, this is the easiest, quickest way to like just start making beats. You want your hi-hats to stay there to keep things organized, and then keep your snares, don't mess your snares up too much, and then have fun with your kicks. To me, this is the best, easiest way to start making drum beats. Mine are a little fancier, but you can hear I did the same type of thing, right? It's pretty straightforward. So now what I wanna do is I wanna mess around with some guitar, and maybe let's pick a different amp simulator this time. This one's great. Do we need something with a little more gain though? Yeah. So, I want to show you actually, I like that. I'm gonna keep that simple. Let's not overcomplicate things, right? So now what I wanna do is just with my first beat here, I'm gonna hit record, but I'm not gonna hit record in order to perfectly like nail like a thing. I'm just gonna experiment. It's gonna be sloppy. It's probably gonna sound bad. And then once I'm done goofing around here, I'm gonna read something that Brandon Drake said. So let's see. So. That's cool. That's kind of fun. I forgot to show you the chords I'm messing with here. Where are we? There we go. So here are the chords I'm tinkering with. I'm looking at E minor or E minor 7. Then I'm looking at a G major 7. Oh, I forgot this second chord is an F sharp half diminished. A minor 7 sounds like B7 or B minor 7. And then a C major 7. You know, sometimes seventh chords with a little too much distortion sound kind of wonky. So let's go the other direction. Let's do some kind of jazzy, super clean jazzy tone here. And now, there we go. Here's our E minor 7. Here's that F sharp half diminished. Here's that G major 7. Here's an A minor 7. Here's that B minor 7. C major 7, and then D7. Yeah. And I don't know how jazzy I want to get necessarily, but I'm going to play around for a minute. And I don't know if maybe I'll come up with something cool, maybe I won't. Let's find out. Here we go. So. That's kind of cool. I kind of like that. So here's what I'm thinking. And what I'm gonna do here is I'll put that chord progression, the one that I like, I'm gonna put it in a little grid here. And I know you can't see my iPad. Let's do that. So here's what I'm gonna do. Each of these little areas represents 4 beats. So we did E minor 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I did C major 7. And then I actually went to A minor 7. So I went 1, 2, 3, 4, da, da, da. Honestly, just like, I think a beat of A minor at the end. Maybe we'll just keep it C major 7, depending on if the bass player is happy about it. Me. And then we'll go to a G. And then we'll go to an E minor. But here's the sneaky thing I want to do. The second time I play this chord progression, copy, I'm just going to paste it because I want to play everything exactly the same. But on this last chord, I'm going to go wapow, B7. And then it'll be great. Let's see. So I'm going to set up for... I'm gonna have to record 2 of these. So I'm just adjusting some software here. And you know what? If I do a little thing here, I think my buttons will start working again. So you get to see something funny. Restarting. And now my buttons should be working. Yes, okay. So what I'm doing here is I am doubling this section because I'm basically repeating it, but I'm changing it the second time through. And I think I want to play this with a pick. I was using my fingers just because it's easier, but I prefer strumming this one. So I don't know if you can see these chords. There we go. This is what I'm gonna do. And hopefully, and I can show you on the camera guitar if you want. So I'm gonna go. My guitar is a little too hot, so I'm trying to strum too quietly. And you never want to do that. You want to be able to strum as comfortably as possible. That just means I just got to turn my guitar down. It's blasting my own ears. There we go. Yeah, beginner means sad. And then Brandon, I will see your question. 2, 3. That's kind of cool. I'm still sort of trying to feel out the right vibe for it. Something's feeling a little wonky with it, but I will say that I'm gonna delete this A minor for sure, and I'll just play C major 7 there. And I forgot that I was gonna do a G major 7 here, which I can't write that backwards. Hang on a sec. We're trying to add as many 7s as possible here this time around. So, let's see here. Let's try this again. 2, 3. That's kind of fun. I feel like I want to do a little bit better. That's nice. Very cool. So, I like that. And then I want to mix it a little better here. Part of what's going on is to go into nerdy recording software land for a second. Sometimes really clean guitar is a little too spiky, so I'm gonna unspiky it a little bit here by doing some. Oh, it's coming out the amp way too loud. There we go. There we go. So, there's that. I'm gonna just not do a second section. I think I'm just gonna hit up bass here and see how I can make that feel. And then, oh, but hang on. I gotta pause because we got a question. We got a question from Drake. So, we'll come back to this. We'll put some bass on it. It'll be fun. But Brandon Drake gave me 20 bucks. Thank you so much, Brandon. And Brandon says, between your YouTube videos and these live streams, you're really helping to straighten the learning curve of theory for me and many others, I'm sure. Thank you. I appreciate that. Nice. And you said, next live stream, Metalheads 101, how to shred. I'm not a metalhead. And so I don't know if that's the kind of shredding I can do, but you know, I can do what I can here. Let's see, any other questions? Hi Jed, good to see you. Nice, okay. So, cool, no other questions. So I'm gonna just throw some bass down here because we have to. How could we not? So we're keeping that chord progression in mind. And I'm gonna throw my effects on real quick that I did last time. Something like that. You know, I should probably do a preset, but I just keep doing it on the fly every time. Let's see here. And here we go. And what do we have? A little more compression. I like to really organize it like that. Bass is so fun. Oh yeah, and then do we need some bass tips, I guess? Why not? Someone asked about that. Let me see. So, a little hot, turn it down a little bit, here we go. All right, I'm gonna screw this up. Okay, so I gotta follow this chord progression. Yeah. So let's see. Oh, someone did ask a really good question. Hang on. Hi, Scott. I've been recording my little riffs and licks for a while, but I'm struggling to develop them into something closer to a song. What would you recommend to get better at this? A, learn how to write some melodies. Melodies make everything possible. They make things happen. It's great. Phil, I can't say how I make the chord graphic circles. That's my secret. And Josh Johan has a good question too. Okay, I'll get more questions, then I'll play some bass. Josh says, when using the caged system, do you stay in the same key the whole time, or do you change with the active chord? So, that's a great question, and it's a tricky one. And the simple answer is I stay in the same key the whole time, but I do accent chord tones that are going by. And my video, 5 Levels of Soloing, talks about that, and it might help you understand it a little bit better. So, let's try this again. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting it changes the second time through. Also, I gotta get my good headphones here. That always helps. And then, whoa, I've been going a long time. I might have to call it a day soon. Let's see. Let's see. That's kind of fun. It's a tricky bass line, and actually this is a great moment to stop and talk about writing bass lines. I'm gonna use the camera guitar to do it, but we'll talk bass lines anyway. It'll be fun. Okay, so heading over to ye olde camera guitar here. So when you're playing a chord like E minor, and you got E minor 7 even. One of the cool things about talking about 7th chords, which here's the 7 of the E minor 7, That's what gives it that nice feeling. When I'm writing bass lines, I'm trying to start on the root because my job as the bass player is to help people understand clearly what chord is going on. So if I was just playing roots the whole time, right, that would help a lot. But what bass players will often do is they'll play roots and fifths as the most simple thing to play. Right? And sometimes they'll even walk up to the fifth of the chord, which is a cool bass line to play if you're just playing an E minor chord. But you don't necessarily want to hang out on the third of the chord. But there's something about the fifth where it harmonizes in a way that, we'll put it this way. High strings, high notes, you hear them really clearly, but you don't feel them in your body. Lower notes, you feel them in your body. And when you hear two low notes that clash, you feel that more in your body, and it almost messes with the music compared to something like this, which this is a pretty jarring sound, but if you add it into a chord, it's not as jarring. But there aren't really many chords where you could go with lower notes. And on bass, that kind of effect is way more intense. And there's something about roots and fifths where they are the most harmonious with the whole chord, that they're the safest notes you can play on bass. So, as a bass player, my general go-tos for bass playing is to play roots, fifths, and sevens on a minor chord. And on a major chord, like the G major here, oops, that's an A. What do we have? G, B, and D. Oh, and I gotta clear this one off here. Instead of playing root 5 and 7 on a major chord, because that jarring sound isn't gonna work, a lot of times bass players will play root 5 and 6. And the simplest way to think about it is it's just as it's close by that safe note, and it's there's, you know, I don't want to get too deep into it, but that's my simplest way to think about bass lines is root 5, 7, and then your octave for minor chords, and then for major chords, root 5, 6. YOLO says, I think 2 is probably the safest degree note over every chord in the scale. When you're playing higher up, totally. It's, you know, it is a safe note to play, especially over major chords. But if you're playing that on the bass, people are going to think that's the root note of the chord. So it's not one you want to hang out on. And there's something about playing root and fifth, kind of like that thing we talked about earlier with the dominant chord going back to the 1 chord, the 5 chord going back to the 1, and how that kind of chord makes 1 feel like home. You kind of get that same effect with a bass, where if you're playing the root of a chord and you're playing the fifth of the chord, if you have another band member just playing the chord, it's pretty easier to hear. It's pretty easier to hear which of these 2 notes is the root note of the chord. But, you know, maybe that's kind of anthropomorphizing the bass a little too much. A lot of it's just tradition. So I see one more thing from someone, and then I should probably call it a day. Otherwise, I'll just keep going all night. It's pretty fun. So, Unanimous Jones says, I learned more theory in the first 20 minutes of your previous writing with theory video than I have in the last 2 years of learning guitar. Hey, thanks for hanging out. And please, feel free to check out my online school, which is, if you don't want to check out my online school, at least use the note name scratch paper that is readily available at the bottom of any page of my website, scottpauljohnson.com. And this awesome scratch paper that I started the video with, if you click this all notes button, you can pretty quickly map out the whole caged system or the whole, pentatonic scale system, whatever you want to do. It's a pretty handy tool. It's pretty cool. Highly recommended. In the meantime here, oh, Brandon, I've only been live for 15 minutes, you say. Someone's trying to trick me. Yeah. Did I get any other questions here? I think that's the only question I got. I thought I saw one. Oh, Chester Lynn says, what kind of software do you use? I use Logic Pro for recording, this kind of thing. And I use other stuff, I'm not going to tell what I use for my camera guitar just yet. I'm keeping that a secret for now. Anyhow, I think maybe we should call it a day. Thanks for hanging out. I had a blast. I hope you feel like you learned some stuff about minor keys and recording and making stuff. I could explain a little bit more about my second chord progression there, but hey, it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, I think I'll just end it. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. See you next time. And MAW, thanks for saying that. And yeah, I'll see you all later. Goodbye.